Colin Cowherd believes that Chris Paul will unlock the new Golden State Warriors dynasty. As you all know, a lot of offseason moves has been made by the Golden State Warriors, and Colin Cowherd had this to say on a recent show.
But they're not, Steph's not a pick and roll guy. And maybe the Warriors are saying we need that to be more of an element in our game as Steph ages. And Chris provides it.
Right.
So Steve Kerr's basically saying, Chris Paul, we're not trading Kuminga. We already moved off Wiseman. Mm-hmm. We like Moody. People like Kuminga around the league. Mm-hmm. We got to make Kuminga work.
You got to.
And Steph's not going to elevate him.
Right.
Chris will. Because really, the one thing you can say is they'll turn the ball over less with Chris Paul over Poole.
I'm telling you.
The only thing that makes them significantly better is if Kuminga finally becomes a 17, 18, 20-point-a-game guy. And are the Warriors acknowledging he's not going to get there with Steph? It's not a knock on Steph. It's a stylistic reality.
For a fact.
Chris will elevate Kuminga to an entire... We're concentrating on Chris. It's the Chris Kuminga piece that will elevate the team.
So Colin Cowherd is right by saying this. However, I do believe there are other players that the Chris Paul can unlock with this Warriors team. So in today's video, we're going to be going through 4 other players that Chris Paul can unlock for the Golden State Warriors, and how he is going to help them win another NBA championship. So make sure to like this video, and guys, 92% of you are still not subscribed to the channel, so it would mean the world if you can subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. The first player is none other than Kavon Looney. Now, as you all know, Chris Paul has done a fantastic job at really turning average big men into an absolute superstar. We've seen this with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan in Lob City. They were great big men for Los Angeles Clippers. However, when Chris Paul left, that's when we started to see the downfall of DeAndre Jordan and also Blake Griffin. If we move over into the Suns, we saw him do a fantastic job with DeAndre Ayton, where Ayton was actually close at being called a rookie bust, but Chris Paul finally saved him and he was able to have a great career, and so far had done a fantastic job for the Suns. So Chris Paul has done a great job all year and throughout his whole career of being able to turn big men into an absolute beast, and it is going to be super interesting to see what Kavon Looney can become with the guidance of Chris Paul, where Kavon Looney is already playing like an absolute superstar for the Golden State Warriors. Now, Kavon Looney last season actually averaged 7 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. He did a fantastic job while also shooting an effective field goal percentage of 63%. So he did a fantastic job all year around, and where I do see Kavon Looney really providing a lot for this team is not only in the rebound section, but also just being a great defender and a great paint protector for this Warriors team. However, with now Chris Paul in the team, where I do see Kavon Looney really skyrocketing in his play is definitely in his scoring. We've seen that Chris Paul has been able to bring out the best scoring in all these other big men, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, even DeAndre Ayton. So we've seen him do it time and time again, and I think it is going to be interesting to see if Kavon Looney can become a 15-20 point average scorer for this Golden State Warriors team. We all know the pick and roll with Steph Curry and Kavon Looney is great. However, we do notice Steph has a lot of attention and he's able to get the shot off really well. With Chris Paul looking more at a pass first type point guard running the pick and roll, I think Looney will get a lot more lobs and a lot more opportunities to score, and that's where we could see a huge boost in Looney's game. The second player is none other than Andrew Wiggins. Now, when it comes to the Golden State Warriors, it is still up in the air what type of lineup the Golden State Warriors are going to be running, whether Chris Paul will come off the bench or whether he will be starting and the Warriors will be running a small ball type lineup. But either way, I think Andrew Wiggins is going to play a huge part when it comes to Chris Paul and his success with this team. As you all know, Chris Paul is a fantastic passer, but what he does a lot is definitely attract a lot of defense in the mid-range, as that is usually his game. Although Chris Paul has developed a great three-point shot, where we do see him really do very well, especially on a pick and roll situation, is getting a lot of mid-range and especially elbow fades off very easily. And this is why we can see a huge boost from Andrew Wiggins, as Chris Paul will attract a lot of defense and leave someone like Wiggins open on the three, but also even further, maybe for a drive to the basket. Now, Chris Paul last season averaged 13.9 points last season, and if we look at Wiggins, he also averaged 17.1, where I do believe is definitely seeing a lot more scoring from Andrew Wiggins and a lot more open opportunities for Wiggins to get a bucket. Now, don't get me wrong, Andrew Wiggins doesn't have the same ISO game as Steph Curry, but if Wiggins is left open on the three or he's given a lane to the basket, I am telling you he is scoring that 9 times out of 10. He had a great effective field goal percentage of 56%, and he also had a 3-point percentage of 40% as well. So we could see Andrew Wiggins turn into an absolute spot-up shooter for this Golden State Warriors team, especially with someone like Chris Paul, who has the vision to make the plays and also has a high IQ to run the exact play in order to have Wiggins to score. Now, when it came to Wiggins and his career so far with the Warriors, he's done a fantastic job. Even the season before that, he was averaging 17.2, so he's been pretty consistent when it comes to him scoring, but we could see even a bigger boost when it comes to Andrew Wiggins scoring next season. If we see him averaging 20, maybe even 22 points per game next season, I can guarantee you that the Golden State Warriors will definitely have a top 5 or maybe even top 3 position in the NBA, especially when it comes to the Western Conference. The third player is none other than Stephen Curry. Now, as you all know, Stephen Curry is already a 9-time All-Star, 4-time NBA champion, and he also averaged 29 points for the Golden State Warriors. But I'm telling you right now, although he may average the same amount of scoring that he did last season, I do believe we are going to be seeing a new Stephen Curry, as Chris Paul will take a lot of the burden when it comes to running a point guard position. Now, I do believe Stephen Curry is a great point guard, do not get me wrong, but he's definitely more of a score-first point guard, and with a lot of the attention on him, it does make it harder and harder for Curry to actually be able to get a shot off and also be able to really do well on offense. Now that he also has a bigger defensive matchups, especially when it came to the playoffs that we saw from Curry last season, I do believe having someone like Chris Paul will really ease up Steph Curry on offense and have him continue to shoot at a very high level. Now, Stephen Curry still had himself an MVP type season last season, where he actually averaged 29.4 points, 6.1 rebounds, and 6.3 assists. He had an effective field goal percentage of 61% and a 3-point percentage of 43%, which is honestly insane. So Stephen Curry is shooting some of the best basketball he has ever shot ever since his peak time with the Golden State Warriors, which was 2015 to around 2016. Now, when it comes to Steph, what I do believe that Chris Paul will definitely unlock in Stephen Curry's game is give him a lot more scoring options and to have him be able to focus on scoring and just scoring alone. I think this is something that is super interesting, but we're seeing Steph Curry averaging 6.1 rebounds. Although that is great for the stat sheet, we shouldn't have Curry have such a huge impact on rebounds as well as offense as well as defense. It really does tire out Curry as the season goes by, and we definitely saw it start to get exposed in the playoffs. Stephen Curry was pretty much doing everything for this Warriors team, and that is not the way to play basketball or how they are going to win another NBA championship. They need everyone contributing and everyone to be a threat on offense and on defense, and that's what I do believe Chris Paul will do. He will definitely take a lot of weight off Curry's shoulders and will give him a lot more opportunities to score. So we may see Steph's assist numbers go down, but we may see Chris Paul's numbers go up, and we see Steph's numbers also go up when it comes to points. So there is a trade-off when it comes to this. We may not see Steph averaging 29, 6, and 6. However, I do believe it will be more beneficial for this team to get those wins if Chris Paul takes that burden off Curry, and Curry can focus on what he does best, which is shoot threes and play great offense. So it is going to be interesting to see them two play together. Now, like I mentioned before, when it comes to the lineup, no one really knows whether they will run small ball and Chris Paul at the point and Stephen Curry at the 2, but it is definitely evident that Chris Paul and Steph Curry are going to be sharing the floor when they can. I think this is something that is so important to actually understand here. Although CP3 will maybe come off the bench, as Steve Kerr has mentioned before, whether he does or whether he doesn't, I do believe Curry and Chris Paul are going to be a great duo to have on the floor together, and it will really change a lot of teams' defenses due to the fact it is going to be harder to guard them both. The fourth player is none other than Moses Moody. Now, we've seen Chris Paul do such a great job at turning young stars into absolute superstars, and I think he can do the same as well on top of Jonathan Kuminga to Moses Moody. Now, as you all know, Moses Moody had a huge season last season where he was getting quite a lot of minutes and averaging 13 minutes while also averaging 4.8 points, 0.8 assists, and also 1.7 rebounds. What he did a fantastic job was definitely play great defense for the Warriors, and he also had a 3-point percentage of 36% and an effective field goal percentage of 58% as well. Where I do see Moses Moody really starting to show signs of him being a great player is definitely playing along someone like Chris Paul. I think think Chris Paul can bring the best out of Moses Moody and teach him a couple of few things. I think having that veteran experience will honestly make Moses Moody better as time goes on. So on top of Colin having his say about what the Golden State Warriors are going to be, he also had a guest, Katino Mobley, who is an ex-NBA player, and he had this to say about Chris Paul joining the Golden State Warriors and how he sees this being such a great fit.
Chris facilitate with Draymond with the pick and rolls.
And maybe Kuminga.
And Kuminga, you're going to make Kuminga better. Chris makes all young guys better. So you can make Kuminga better. Now you have Steph and Clay doing something they were doing since they were kids. Just running around, passing, cutting, shooting, spreading the floor for Chris. So now you're saving years for Steph and Clay because they don't have to do as much on the ball, especially Steph. So now Steph can hide more. And even if you do that, now Chris with the pick and rolls with Kuminga and Draymond and then Clay's on one side, it's easier for you.